Happy Halloween in April. I always think there should be two Halloweens a year. You know what I mean? Halloween's the best holiday. Let's have one in October. Let's have one in early spring. That work for you? I think that works for me. All right, so today we are talking about continuing on the food-themed devil fruits of the Charlotte family. We're talking about the first son and the first child of Charlotte Linlin. We have Charlotte Perospero, who is also easily like the one I would least want to run into in like a dark alley. You know what I mean? It's just the tongue thing. He's like super creepy. He's all like shriveled up and he's like, ah. You know, I would rather run into Katakuri. I think me and Katakuri would get along. I'd run into Katakuri, this like 17-foot tall guy, and I'd be like, want to go down to Dunkin' Donuts and get some donuts? He'd be like, yes. I'm like, okay. And then it just cuts to Dunkin' Donuts. Me and Katakuri eating donuts and some coffee. It would be a lovely time. I think it would be good. You know, there's a few other members of the Charlotte family that'll probably kill you, but Perospero looks really creepy while doing it, right? Okay. So, he has the power of the lick fruit, not the candy fruit, although he is a candy man, and I'm just going to be calling him a candy man for probably the remainder of this video, the candy fruit. So the reason why it isn't called that is in the fourth One Piece movie, Dead End Adventure, we have the main villain, Gasparde. And Gasparde, who's essentially a stand-in for Crocodile in the movie, because Alabasta was the most recent arc at the time. Also, his second in command is a dude that basically is just like a palette-swapped version of Mr. One Daz Bones named Needless. So there was totally a Crocodile and Mr. One vibe going on. And since Crocodile was a Logia and had the power of the Sand fruit, Gasparde also needed to have a Logia. They decided to give him the Ame Ame no Mi, which is the literal translation candy fruit. So years later, when Oda was designing the Charlotte family and we're about to go into Whole Cake Island, he wanted to have one of them obviously have the ability to control candy. Makes sense. However, the Ame Ame no Mi was already used in another property, so he decided to go with the lick fruit instead. I guess a side effect of the fruit is it also gives you a really long tongue. But yeah, I like to think that is a byproduct of the ability of the fruit, given the fact that it's called the lick fruit, right? Okay. So yes, Perospero has the ability to manipulate candy. However, it's only a specific kind of candy. Candy is a very broad term when you really think about it, right? I mean, just look through this bucket of used Halloween candy we have back here. We have some dark chocolate. I love dark chocolate. We have Hershey Kisses. We have Kit Kats. We have Hershey bars, right? So like chocolate is a candy. Perospero cannot create and, manipulate chocolate. Same thing with like bubble gum is a candy. He cannot make bubble gum. Licorice is a candy. He cannot make licorice. Toffee, any of that kind of stuff. Caramel. He can't do any of that stuff, right? The kind of candy that Perospero creates and manipulates, he's a paramecia. He's not a Logia. He cannot turn his body into candy, is specifically the kind of candy that is created by boiling sugar. All right, so the way you make candy, or one type of candy, is you take sugar and water and corn syrup, and then you boil all that down, and you kind of get this hot, molten, sort of syrupy goo, all right? And then you can kind of stretch that out, and you can actually go and watch some cool videos on YouTube of, like, candy artisans, people that have been making candy their entire lives, and, like, the method they have in, like, stretching out the syrup and then laying it all down, and then it will eventually harden to the point where it becomes kind of like glass, and you could sort of break it into a bunch of different shapes and sizes and molds. You can add various food coloring to it. Things like various like flavorings, like peppermint oil is making like candy canes. And in fact, Perospero has a giant candy cane that he uses, okay? So it's anything like that, like hot rendered sugar, boiled sugar that he can mold into that type of candy. So this type of candy categories would be things like lollipops, candy canes, Jolly Ranchers, any kind of hard candy is the kind of candy he can manipulate, okay? And he can control that in its hardened form, and he can also make, like, structures that are more liquidy and viscous. He makes he makes his arm. He makes a prosthetic arm out of candy at one point, and the arm is able to articulate and move. So he's also referred to as a candy artisan or a craftsman, all right? And we see this throughout the arc. He's the eldest of the Charlotte family, so, well, aside from Big Mom, he's the eldest child of the Charlotte family, so it would make sense. And if he did have his ability since he was a little kid, it would make sense that he would have had a long, long time to perfect this power, okay? Just like how you have Galette's ability that we talked about last time that had the ability to shape butter, he can shape candy, although candy, when it hardens, can actually have a little bit more stability than butter does at any rate. In normal terms, you make a statue out of candy, you take a hammer, that'll probably shatter apart fairly quickly if you just made a statue out of Jolly Ranchers or something. Now, in One Piece, when he makes a barrier or a shield of candy, it can block a punch from Gear 3rd Luffy. So, a little bit more durable. Kind of the same thing like with Galdino's wax. In fact, there's actually a lot of comparisons between the Doru Doru no Mi and the Lick Lick fruit, okay? So, it's wax, but when it hardens, it's harder than steel, which is not a property that wax has in our world, but it still has the ability to melt, or I guess the weakness, I should say, to melt if it's too hot. Same thing with Perospero's candy. He can make a giant candy Iron Maiden to, like, trap you in, but if it gets hit by fire or an explosion, as it were when Pedro blew himself up, the candy will fall apart and melt and crack and break, okay? So that's kind of the same weakness as hair to heat. So Perospero should probably stay away from his brother Oven because he'd be a little dangerous there as well, right? But the candy, when it is hardened, pretty damn hard to break out of. He had all of the Germa siblings, these superhuman, genetically modified soldiers, basically, all trapped and pinned down with just his candy. Just his hard candy was enough to make it so Ichiji, Niji, and Yonji and Reiju could not just, like, flex their muscles and break out of it. It was that hard. Also, when Beiji went into his big father, he went into this giant castle, tank-treaded, armored form. Perospero was able just to cover the whole base of that in candy. You'd think, like, a giant castle person would be able just to, like, just like break it apart like that, but no, it gunked up his tank treads enough that he wasn't able to move around. It was also able to stop the Sunny, and in a lot of cases, this is really important, water does not affect this shit, all right? So we all know that water is the natural weakness of Devil Fruit users, okay? However, one exception that a few Devil Fruits utilize to get around this weakness is that constructs that are created via Devil Fruit powers. So in the case with Perospero, he uses his ability to make a candy sea slug or a candy frog. The sea slug and the frog are able to actually float on top of the ocean and move around. So that's how Big Mom was able to go from island to island while she was in the middle of her hunger pang for her wedding cake. She wanted that cake, and she started to just walk off the island, and Perospero created like a candy slug, and she was walking on top of it, and the candy was like floating on top of the ocean. The candy sea slug seemed perfectly fine. It was not dissolving in the salt water or anything like that. It's also important to keep in mind, though, that a lot of the ocean in Totland is like covered in juice and like candy and cream and all various types of like food and baked good products and stuff. So maybe that also had a factor in how exactly that the candy sea slug was able to be around. Maybe only in the waters of Totoland does this work, and outside in the world maybe it would dissolve that way. But the idea is, it seemed to be that no, like the candy sea slug exists on the water, and there's really not a problem with that, okay? It might have been created by a Devil Fruit user, but the sea slug itself is not a Devil Fruit power holder in its own right, okay? So Perospero cannot swim, but these things could, right? So because he is a skilled artisan, he's also able to do things like he recreated the entire lab at Punk Hazard in Whole Cake on Whole Cake Island. He took the blueprints of it and was able to create an exact replica, and they just reinforced it with iron. So Caesar Clown was like, "Oh, I'm sorry, Mama. I cannot recreate my experiments. Those straw hats destroyed my lab. I don't know what to do." And Big Mom is like, Mama, coincidentally, we also happen to have a candy artisan that recreated the entire lab. And Caesar's like, "Wow, that's great, fantastic. I guess I can get back to work then." And there you are. Perospero also threatens Caesar at this point with like, "Oh, now, if you don't," he even talks really creepily, "if you don't finish Big Mom's request and create the gigantification serum, I'm gonna turn you into a candy man, right? Okay, which I guess means you get covered with bees. No, that's the other Candyman movie. Yeah, rest in peace, Tony Todd. Such a horror movie legend. That's such a good movie, such a good role, like perfect casting. Okay. Anywho, so he has a slew of abilities. First off, he has the ability Candyman, and honestly, I think this is the scariest one. He doesn't cover you in bees. No, he covers you in hard candy. And the candy is slowly solidifying. So I think when it covers you at first, it's like gooey, but then it like slowly is like. And the way that it's explained is the candy will eventually make its way inside of you and like harden inside your lungs and you'll die that way. You don't even need to go that far though, Perospero. I mean, I'm pretty sure just being covered in a layer of candy, I'm pretty sure you would just die of asphyxiation at that point. You know what I mean? I think you don't even have to have the candy enter your body. Just like you can't breathe because your whole body's covered in candy. Pretty sure you would just die that way. Oddly enough, Chopper and Brooke were affected by this. Chopper, it makes sense that he would die from this ability because he's like a living being that has lungs that he needs to breathe. Brooke was mobilized by this ability. I don't think this could have killed Brooke. I don't see any way. I mean, immobilizing him, sure. Trapping him in a shell of candy. Brooke doesn't have lungs. Brooke doesn't need to breathe. He's a skeleton man, right? I don't think this ability, I mean, he's capable of breathing. He's capable of sleeping and eating, but I don't think, like, lack of food would be something that would kill him, right? So this scary power for sure, but I just don't think this would have killed Brooke. It would just immobilized him indefinitely, right? And, of course, any excess heat or flames or an explosion will also free you from this candy prison, all right? It'll just shatter it apart like glass. So another really intricate thing that he makes, he's even able to make candy that can like move like a machine. So he makes the candy escalator to take all the members of the underworld all the way up to the top level of Whole Cake Chateau to where the tea party is being held, the wedding and everything between Pudding and Sanji, right? And so the escalator actually works like an escalator. It actually moves, okay? Same thing with his arm. He makes the prosthetic arm. The arm is able to move and he can bend his fingers and everything like that because he has like perfect candy kinesis control over the candy because he's 50 years old and he's had this power probably since he was a little kid, right? So you also have Candy Wave. Pretty simple ability. He just sends out a wave of candy and then it hardens and it traps you. Candy Wall, sturdy enough to block a punch from Gear 3rd Luffy. That shit's pretty powerful there. Candy Maiden, an entire Iron Maiden, which looks really cool, made of solid candy with spikes that'll stab the shit out of you. What's also fun in the anime, the candy changes color. His arm is made out of like a green colored candy. The Iron Maiden is made out of like orange. He later makes a giant candy axe that's like amber colored. So I like the idea that he can, yeah, because it's like adding maybe different kinds of food coloring into his candy, and because he's so skilled with it, he can change the color of the candy as it is in our world. So that was actually pretty neat. The Candy Armor, that's the ability where he just covers his body in candy. He tried to use that to protect against Pedro. It's a giant explosion attack. Didn't work out too well for him. He was still extremely damaged, and he still lost an arm, taking a page out of Kubo's book on that one. What's the best way to show an enemy taking serious damage? Losing an arm. I'm like, okay, there you go. I think overall in most shonen battle manga, more arms have been lost than legs. I know Aokiji lost a leg, but I think more arms have been lost than legs, and if you're looking at like shonen manga. But yeah, that's Candy Armor. See, like I said, a lot of this stuff, once we're getting into the okay, Crackers is a little different. The biscuit fruit is a little different because he has like a few different kinds of ways he can do that. But when it comes right down to it, he manipulates candy. He makes candy armor. It's kind of the same thing as similar as like the Doru Doru no Mi or the Venom fruit, the Doku Doku no Mi that Magellan uses, all that kind of stuff, right? So like all the standard stuff, like I make a shield out of the substance I can make, or I make a sword out of the substance I can make, or I make, cover my body in armor out of the substance I make, wax or poison or candy or butter or whatever you want it to be. There you go, right? We have the Candy Sea Slug that I also talked about. And also there's the Candy Frog. Not a lot of people bring up the Candy Frog, okay? But the Candy Frog, I think, was really neat. That was the ability he used, and Big Mom was, like, riding on it at the end of Totland. It was neat. Then we have, oh, this is cool, Candy Showers. So he makes a bow and arrow with candy. There you go. And then, see, I don't think this would work too much with Galette's butterfruit. Making a bow and arrow out of solid butter, it might not be too effective. But candy, when it, solidifies, pretty damn solid stuff, so he can pretty much make any solid weapon you can imagine. Just open the, D&D 5e player's manual to the description of all the weapons. He can make any of those, simple or martial. In this case, he makes like a long bow. So he makes a long bow and just fires a bunch of candy arrows at people. Yeah. I mean, there you go. He's candy man. There you go. And I think that's it. I think that's all the abilities he actually uses. So all the standard stuff you would imagine. But because he is so skilled with it and he's such a craftsman, he's made buildings and escalators and stuff. He could probably make a candy elevator. He could probably make a candy motorcycle. He could probably make a candy lawnmower. Like, I don't know. He could probably make a candy anything. He's able to actually recreate, like, in order to do that, other than just like maybe like psychically controlling like the escalator or whatever, it would actually be really fascinating if we actually see how the way he's able to do this. Because when you think of like, let's say he was going to create like a candy, I don't know about motorcycle. What would you use for the fuel? Okay, fuel aside, he could probably do that. He would maybe be able to make a candy motorcycle with a candy engine and candy tubes and cables and wires and tires and all the different things that go into a motorcycle absolutely perfectly. In fact, the way that he created the lab is he made a candy version of the lab that was then reinforced with steel. So he basically made like an outline of the lab, and then they just added steel on top of that, and there you go. So, yeah, really complicated pieces that require gears and cogs and all that kind of jazz. He's skilled enough that he could do that. Now, as for an awakening, we didn't see him use the awakening. I would imagine if anybody could use it, especially how skilled he was and how long he's had the power, he'd probably use the awakening. Turns everything around the surrounding area into candy. Candy trees, candy grass. But once again, only like that hard kind of candy sort of thing. It would actually be really really to activate that. I don't think it would be as neat as the Galette's butter ability where everything would melt. But like, imagine all the grass you're standing on. Every single blade of grass turns sharp as glass, kind of like Crimson Hell, and everything's super shiny. But it maintains its color, so all the grass is still green, but it's super vibrant, like that unnatural green you get out of like jelly or something like that. Whatever you're using, like ooh, mint flavor. Jelly, and it's just that, oh yeah. It's like something like that. Everything is sparkly and syrupy and stuff like that. It's like you're in Willy Wonka's chocolate factory, except instead of Willy Wonka, you have Perospero. Okay, Perospero's creepier, but Willy Wonka is legitimately insane. So which one do you go with? I think I would still go with Wonka, to be honest with you. I think I would still go with Gene Wilder Willy Wonka than I would with Perospero. All right, absolutely, right? Oh man, that would be his domain expansion. Willy Wonka's Chocolate Factory. Activate my awakening. Vroom. That would be a good one there. Oh, man. Anything else, though? Like, I don't really know, man. Like, there's just, when it comes to devil fruits like this, like, it's kind of like you've seen one, you've seen all of them. Okay, you know what? I'll say this at the end. This isn't really has anything to do with his devil fruit power, but Perospero should be dead by now. Like, I never liked this guy, and the fact that he's still alive now, when it would have been the perfect opportunity for Pedro to kill him, didn't happen. It's like, all right, maybe Big Mom kills him at the end of the arc. That doesn't happen. Okay, well, certainly during Onigashima, Carrot and Wanda working together, they'll kill him, right? Nope. He's still alive. I'm like, come on. Marco is there. Marco can kill Perospero. Nope, still alive. I'm like, this is one of those opportunities where it's like, Oda, you really did have a perfect way. Like, imagine how cool it would have been. I mean, how just like, a great way of setting up how ruthless Yonko really are. At the end of Totland, when Big Mom was like even threatening Perospero, her eldest child, of, if you lied to me about the cake, I'm going to kill you, right? Wouldn't it be insane if it got to the point where Big Mom really did think the cake was a lie, and then she just grabs Perospero, and you don't even have to show it, but like Perospero's like, no, mama, no, and then like kills him, like crushes him. Dead, and then the cake shows up. It's like, oh, the cake was really there the whole time. Okay, and then like she just didn't give a shit that she just murdered her eldest child and then just went to go eat the cake. That would have been a good way to end his character, honestly, there. Now, If you didn't want to go with that route, I mean, honestly, Pedro should have just killed him. Like, his explosion should have just killed Perospero, just take them both out at that point. I think that would have been fine. Pedro's sacrifice really just came down to freeing the Sunny from the candy, and I guess also freeing Chopper and Brooke. But, like, that's what he gave his life for, to free a boat and to also, you know, take out one of Perospero's arms. I mean, like, you could have just killed Perospero there, but whatever. Okay, he doesn't die in Whole Cake. Wanda and Carrot teaming up, Sulong, take him down. And I think they do dominate that fight initially in their Sulongs, but then the Sulong goes away. Just kill him there. You know what I mean? It's like, that's perfect revenge for Pedro. Although, then again, I guess you want to maybe go around the, like, no, Carrot, don't go down the revenge path. It's not worth it. It's okay, though. You can still kill Perospero. He's an asshole. I would love, like, the ghost of Pedro to appear behind Carrot and be like, Carrot, I don't want you to go down this path. Carrot's like, but I need to kill Perospero. Oh, no. You could totally kill him. Hopefully kill him. Avenge me. But after this, I don't want you to go down the path of revenge and evil. Oh, okay. Don't worry. I won't. All right. Now kill him. Kill him for me. Rip off his other arm first and then finish it off. You know, it's like, Carrot's like, yeah. You know what I mean? That would have been fun. That would have been the perfect timing. But no, he's still alive. I guess. All right. Well, anyway. The powers of candy. Can he make pop rocks? Ooh, that would be a cool upgraded ability. He makes pop rock candy that, like, throws at you, and then he, I don't know, somebody that has the soda devil fruit. I guess we haven't seen the soda devil fruit yet. We've seen the glug glug fruit, the alcohol fruit that Vasco Shot has, but we haven't seen the carbonated, oh my god. If Frankie ever eats a devil fruit, wait a minute. If Frankie ever ate a soda or, like, a cola devil fruit, would that just turn him into a perpetual motion machine? It might, actually. Crazy. Well, anyway, combines with the cola powers, with the candy powers, makes Pop Rocks, just makes a giant nuclear explosion. Just boom! That's the upgrade I'm looking for. Okay. Perospero still needs to die, but the fruit can maybe reincarnate somewhere else, and then we could do this cola Pop Rock combination. We'll see where that goes. All right. Anyway, that's the candy fruit. Thanks for watching, everybody. This will be Teching 101, signing out. Did you ever try these yet? Nerds Gummy Clusters. Not a sponsor, but these things are rather addictive. They're really good.